What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and here we are a year later, somehow sitting at 200,000 subs. If you've been with me since then, you already know what I'm talking about, but just in case you weren't, the timing of this is really funny because last year on March 9th during spring break, I hit 100,000 subs, and this year during spring break, I just so happened to hit 200,000 subs, and the timing of that, it just couldn't have been funnier because different projections had me at different numbers throughout the year, especially during summertime when things were really hot. So it's just really funny that exactly a year later, we added 100,000 more, and I'm really thankful for that. And I'm especially thankful to you all who continue to follow, because as I've gotten closer to graduation, things have only gotten harder and more hectic to keep up with this. So if I'm away for a week or a week and a half, most people aren't bothering me because they understand I have a life outside of YouTube that's pretty damn demanding right now. So I appreciate that. And after graduation finally comes, I'm definitely going to have a lot of entertaining stories about what it was like and how life went, juggling YouTube and college on my second channel, all that, I'm going to tell you guys all about it soon enough. But right now, I'm going to tell you about the Hardwood Amino app, because if you're an NBA fan, you definitely need this in your life. As some of you already know, this is the app that I sourced most of the questions for this video from via the blog post I created, and the app just has so many entertaining features for you. One I wanted to focus on today is the live layer feature that allows you to find the best place to interact with other members. It tells you exactly how many members are online, what they're currently doing, and you can click on the tab to take you to that action. As you can see here, I can easily find my favorite feature, which is the public chat room that allows you to interact with everybody in real time. Also, here's the awesome new feature called Avatar Chat. You can create your own avatar based on yourself, or you can upload a picture and the app will make the avatar based off of that. Here you can further customize it and make it look any way you'd like. And of course, there's plenty of other activities you can do, like vote on polls or take quizzes that are made from people in the community. In the year that I've been using Hardwood, they've only been getting better and more engaging by adding more features, so I definitely recommend this for you. If you'd like to download it, the links for the iOS and Android versions are going to be in both the comment section and in the description. Hope to see you there. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the Q&A, because I love doing these. They turn into a lot of funny stories, as you guys might already know, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Speaking of funny stories, the first question I got was from Mark Valdez, and he asked, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had on the court? And we've all had embarrassing moments on the court, and when I read this question, two immediately came to mind. One is definitely embarrassing, and the other isn't so humiliating because it was kind of expected, so I'm gonna start with the least embarrassing story first. This one happened in this was the summer of 2009 actually, because this was when Courtney Lee was very new to the Orlando Magic. Yeah, I might have already mentioned on this channel that I had a 3-point shootout with him, and of course that didn't really last long, but they had other players there as well, and one of them happened to be a professional overseas. I don't remember what country he was playing in, but I do remember that he was a professional basketball player wherever he was, and I also distinctively remember that this guy was a motherfucking cyborg. It was this real big black dude. He was like 6'20". He was built as hell. So of course nobody really stood. Of course nobody at the camp stood a chance against him anyways. But as the camp had us running 5-on-5, I had the bright idea to try to stop this guy on a fast break. I can't really remember much from this moment. I just remember that he had the ball leading the fast break and I'm on the opposite team. I went up and tried to stop it, and it's the only time in my life I've ever been dunked on, and it felt helpless. Of course, he outsized me by like 1,000 feet and probably a good 2,000 pounds at that point in my life, because I wasn't even in high school yet. But yeah, that's a pretty embarrassing moment because there was a ton of people there. It's an Orlando Magic camp, so it's not no small camp where you guys just focus on your skills. It was just a fun thing with a lot of people, so that's one embarrassing moment. However, there was another camp I went to about 2 years later, and this one was a smaller camp with only about 10 guys in it, and we were being trained by a former NBA player actually. So the camp lasted for a week, and on one of those days we were playing one-on-one. I believe it was actually a one-on-one tournament because we had got done with our drills or whatever, so we're all matched up on different goals playing one-on-one, and I'm going against this kid named Pedro. I swear to you, I can't remember what he looks like. I can't remember anything about this kid. I just know he had handles. So you can pretty much tell how this story ends. I'm playing defense on him or whatever. I get crossed. I fall on my back, which is the worst I've ever been crossed. And instead of going to score, because this is a one-on-one tournament we're having, this kid waits for me and helps me up. He's like, yo man, you alright? And he extends his hand and helps me up. And Pedro, if you're out there, fam, I would have rather you had just scored. I would have rather you had just scored, fam. You didn't have to do that. Moving on, I have AO Jeremiah here, and he asks, what do you think the fate is of 2K basketball? I thought this was a great question considering the year, because right now with NBA 2K18, I feel like this is the most upset people have ever been with the 2K basketball game. And maybe that's just because I'm living in the moment, and you know, people are always mad at 2K every year, but damn, like I can't click on NBA 2K's Twitter handle or Ronnie 2K's Twitter threads or his Instagram comments. I can't go anywhere without people just fuming at this game, and with good reason, because I think that greed has almost reached an all-time high with this game, and there's a lot of things they've gotten wrong. The gameplay this year, of course, we always have our complaints about gameplay, but man, this year there's just some things like, how is this in the game? So anyways, regarding the fate of 2K basketball, well, they're in a sweet spot as a company right now because of course they just really want to make money every year. That's what most companies want. And you know, they have a death grip on the market right now. They have a monopoly because nobody is really going to play NBA Live. People might get curious, they might want it to be good, they might want to even go buy it and try it. But at the end of the day, the majority of people who play basketball games go to 2K, and it's been that way for almost 10 years now, because if you recall, after NBA Live 10, that's where things really started to go down, and NBA 2K9, that really gave 2K a huge name, it gave them a huge push, and we're moving on to 2K19 right now, so they've had a really good control on this for 10 years. And at the point they're at now, it really seems like they only have to get one thing right every year for people to buy their game. So for different people, just different people like different things. Like, I'll tell you, for me with NBA 2K18, even though there's clearly problems with the game, I've honestly only played quick matches online pretty much this whole year, mostly because that's all I've had time for, but that's something that I've enjoyed since I was a kid. I've been playing quick matches online most of the year since like around NBA 2K9, NBA 2K8. So I don't even know what the computer offline is actually like this year. I don't know if there's a problem, if it's competent. You know, some of that stuff doesn't really matter to me because I haven't used it. So in the interest of time, what I'll say is that as long as 2K doesn't have a real competitor, which right now they don't, and for as long as they can have at least one thing in the game for all types of different audiences to enjoy, they're gonna keep selling like they always do. I don't see what's gonna change because there's anger every year from the 2K community. People curse Ronnie's name, they talk about the developers, and as soon as that new trailer comes out, people have their money ready for the next 2K game. So until there's a legit competitor for them, as far as the fate of 2K basketball, I don't see it going anywhere, because let me just ask you this, are you gonna stop buying 2K? If for the majority of people the answer is no. The majority of people there's gonna be something in this next trailer that gets you to buy it, and then there's gonna be problems, and then you're gonna buy the next one. That's how it's gonna go for most of them. With that being said, if NBA Live was to ever be able to capitalize on the places that 2K is weak and appeal to the masses, 2K would then have a huge problem on their hands. But you know, we wait for NBA Live to come back and challenge them every single year, so yeah, who knows. The next question comes from, I don't really know what this says, Papia BHI, who knows, but sorry if I mispronounced that. And he asks, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? And that's a funny question because like, I'm pretty sure the entire time I grew up, just like any regular person, what I wanted to be probably changed like a million times. But as I got around high school, believe it or not, I wanted to be a game designer actually. Throughout my entire life, middle school, elementary school, I played so many video games, and as I was getting to high school and I was thinking about a college, I was like, I love games so much, why not try to turn, I guess you would call a passion, into a career? And I started looking around and digging up info about what being a game designer entails and all of that, and mostly when I was in high school, it was a nice cover because I was saying I wanted to be a game designer, so that gave me an excuse to justify playing a bunch of games with using my time to play a bunch of video games. That's kind of what it did. But as I did some more digging and looking around, I figured out that yeah, this might not really be what I want. With that being said, I'm still very interested about the processes of making a video game, and I love watching, not documentaries, but I guess those little short videos. Like for Uncharted, I always like watching the development process for that on YouTube. I think that's really entertaining. But as far as actually doing that for a career, there's plenty of reasons why I turned that down. But yeah, now you know, at one point Dom did want to be a game designer. Toby Jenkins asked, who are your favorite rappers? And actually a lot of people asked me that, so I decided to answer, and I listen to a ridiculous amount of music, so it's very hard to narrow down, but just throwing some names out there would be like J. Cole, Drake, the old Kanye West, used to be Lil Wayne, T-Pain from his older days, T.I. definitely love listening to T.I. Young Jeezy, although I don't listen to him much these days, that's more from when I was a kid, so I'm listening to most of his throwbacks. Soulja Boy definitely had a lot of bangers, so I think he'd have to make this list. Yeah, don't take that seriously because I don't f with Soulja Boy at all. Yeah, just scrolling through my music library, that's a good list to get you started, but there's definitely more. This question comes from LeeAlex379, and this is actually really interesting because it's something that I considered making a video about a long time ago. And he asked, what is your opinion on Kevin Durant's legacy if he ties or surpasses Michael Jordan in accolades? Definitely a video idea that I had at one point in time, and for one reason or another I never got around to it, so I'm just gonna do it here. Kevin Durant's legacy is a really confusing thing because on one hand, no matter what you think about him or if you hate him or love him, he's gonna be one of the best basketball players to ever play. 7 feet tall, playing like a damn shooting guard. That's the reason people hate him so much for going to Golden State, because they felt like, you know, my guy, you could have made your own legacy with your own team and won multiple championships there. You didn't have to join the team that beat you to, you know, go win a championship. And because of that, of course, his rings are devalued. Now, you've never heard me hate on him, you've never heard me be a part of the crowd that calls him a snake and all of that, because I just look at what he said, and I can't remember where he said it, but he just said that he wanted to go somewhere and play basketball and have fun. And to me, that's a lot different from a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant type legacy, or even LeBron in Cleveland, where it's like, okay, I'm in this city and I have to bring them championships and it has to be my team and all of that. Kevin Durant, whether, you know, whatever your opinion is on his mentality, that just is what it is, but he doesn't care about that type of legacy from what he said. So then comes the question, well, how do you judge it? Because in all likelihood, playing with this Golden State team, which on paper and even maybe off of paper, what we're going to see in the future is that this may become the greatest team of all time, because nobody's ever had talent like this all on one team. They're probably going to win multiple championships, and you really should start asking the question, how are we going to judge Kevin Durant as opposed to other legends? Because say Kevin Durant does end up like this guy said, he passes Michael Jordan in rings and maybe in some of the accolades and some of the stats and whatnot. How do you look at that and say, well, okay, yeah, he has 6 championships and, you know, maybe he only loses 1 finals because he's playing on this Golden State team, but then at the same time, you always remember what he did in 2016. And maybe it's because we're only about a year and a half removed, but it kind of seems like that's always going to be relevant, because we're always going to remember that team won 73 games, and although they did move a lot of players to get him, he joined a very dominant core and went and won a championship, which that was a rather easy thing to do. If LeBron James had went to the Celtics, or Michael Jordan had went to the Pistons, or Larry Bird to the Lakers, of course it would have been easy to win a championship, so you just don't look at it the same. So in terms of a legacy, look, like I said, a 7-foot shooting guard, likely gonna have multiple championships, crazy accolades, crazy stats. He's definitely probably gonna wind up a top 10 player of all time no matter what anybody thinks. But it's gonna be very difficult for him to ever pass the LeBrons and the Michael Jordans of the world in terms of greatness, because that is always going to be an asterisk unless he leaves Golden State and maybe say goes back to OKC and wins some championships, or just goes elsewhere and doesn't win it with this team that beat him. It's gonna be very difficult to look at him and say, yeah, he's better than a LeBron or he's better than a Michael, because those guys took legacy to mean something different than Kevin Durant takes it to mean. So just take a look at LeBron James' career path. When he went to the Miami Heat, a lot of people didn't like it. He went back to Cleveland and he won a championship that in most people's eyes is definitely worth more than the 2 that he won in Miami. So it's the same thing for KD. The championships that he wins here, in the book, he's always going to be a champion, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. But as far as these conversations that we have and where he ranks in all-time lists, those championships are definitely not going to be worth as much as ones that he might win with another team, or if he goes back to OKC, because I don't think I've ever said it, but I'm not fully convinced that he's going to finish his career a Golden State Warrior. And I don't mean that in a joking way, like he's going to join the next team that beats them. I seriously don't think that he's going to, I don't think he's going to retire here, fam. He's a people pleaser. That's something that's been in the news. When he left, they talked about how hurt he was because he likes people to think well of him. And I think we can tell by his burner account that we're like 99% sure he cares about people's opinions. So I don't see him finishing a Golden State Warrior. Let's see how the rest of his career goes. This will be easier to judge as the years pass. Quick intermission between the basketball talk. Caleb Hornback asked, what's my favorite video game? That is such a difficult question because I played so many video games throughout my entire life. But I guess if I have to answer this question, I'm gonna say it's a game called Driver 3 that I'm pretty sure none of you know of. Just think of toned down Grand Theft Auto, and that's basically what the Driver series was. It was a game that when I was a kid, I just really admired for its storytelling and the cinematic scenes that it had, and I had tons of fun. I mean, I don't think I was allowed to play Grand Theft Auto for a while, so Driver was definitely the game that I was playing around like 2005 and 2006. It's between that and like the Ratchet and Clank series actually. Ratchet and Clank, if a lot of you didn't know, the music that I used to use in my videos comes from Ratchet and Clank, so that's a more famous game series that I would think a lot of you would know. Next question comes from LaChoke. LaChoke asks, if you could spend a day with an NBA player, who would you spend it with and why? And for me, that would definitely be Kobe Bryant. I've watched a lot of Kobe Bryant stuff throughout my life, a lot of his documentaries. Just a couple of days ago, I watched the one where he was talking with Shaq. That was very interesting. His documentary after he tore his Achilles, for some reason, I cannot remember the damn name of that one, but that's one of the best ones I ever watched. And listening to Kobe Bryant talk about basketball, if you're an NBA fan, you could do it all day because he just has the most unique take on things. And when you listen about how he attacked different points in his career, and even one of the weirdest things I ever heard was that to guard Allen Iverson, he studied how sharks hunted seals off the coast of Africa. Like, that shit was weird when I first read it. I was like, man, whatever. But I looked into it and it's just interesting and it's unique. So I would definitely like to pick his brain because I don't think anybody thought about their careers or how to defend players or just different strategies. I don't think anybody was like as detailed as Kobe. At least that's what I think. I don't know all these guys, but yeah, that's the way it comes off. Next question, Jaden Miller 11 asks, what was my favorite year to watch basketball and what year did you watch the most basketball? Yeah, I've actually been trying to come up with a video topic for the 2010 NBA season for the longest, and I just can't put my finger on what I want to do because that's the year that, you might not believe it now, I own a YouTube channel, but that was the year I was so deep into basketball. Like, I was a kid back then. I was in the 9th grade and I damn near felt like I was on the Boston Celtics roster. Like, when they lost games, like I would feel some type of way the next day. I was so deep into that schedule that year, and I think it was mainly because at that point in being a Celtics fan, I felt like they had been slighted of a championship, or I felt like they had been slighted of where they were supposed to be because Kevin Durant had that injury in 2009, so they didn't make the finals that year. And coming into 2010, they were an average team for most of the season. So people were looking at LeBron in Cleveland, and they were looking at the Lakers and the Orlando Magic, and just nobody believed in the Celtics that whole year. Like, I don't mean to brag, but I think even as a kid, like in 2009, like I was the only person, or that was 2010. I think I was like one of the only people who was really always calling it that, fam, the Celtics are going to be in the finals, whether they're a 5th seed, whether they're a 4th seed, they're going to beat the Cavaliers. Because at the time, people were so deep in Cleveland, and you can't tell now because these days people look at the Cavs and they say, oh, all of LeBron's rosters were trash and they were never going to do anything. But back in 2010, when the Celtics beat the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference semifinals, listen to the commentator, and just if you were around back then, that was considered an upset. You might not believe it if you weren't watching basketball back then, but the Celtics beating the Cavaliers in 2010, that was considered an upset because Boston, coming into that playoff year, they were a 500 team. I can distinctly remember whether it was after the All-Star break or in like the last 42 or 41 games or whatever, they broke even at 500. So coming into the playoffs, the only person I can remember that believed in the Celtics on TV that year was Kenny Smith. And before game 1 of the Cavs and Celtics started, and I really wish that I could find this commentary, or the TNT show he said this on, but before that series started, he said specifically, I want to say the Celtics can win this series, and nobody on the panel agreed with him, and of course they won that series in 6. So that was just my favorite year, even though it ended in complete heartbreak. I'm getting carried away. I could actually talk about this for the rest of the video. Yeah, I'm gonna do a video on the 2010 season one day because I remember so much about that year, and yeah, that was my favorite year of basketball ever. Even though Boston didn't win, 2010 forever, man. Aiden McGowan asked, what's your favorite video on the channel? And I actually got asked this by multiple people, so I decided to take it on, and it's definitely a hard question to answer because by this point I've made around 160 videos, I believe, and I really do miss some of the old barbershop talk videos I used to do like a year ago where I just kind of I didn't write anything down and I used to just talk from the head. But I would have to say my favorite video is actually one of my most recent ones, and it's the one I made about Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. I love that video because it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. As I was in the process of putting that video together, I told my little brother, he was in the room with me, and I was like, this video is going to cause a shitstorm. And that's exactly what it did. It made people mad. Some people absolutely loved what I said. And I like that video for a few reasons. One, because I think that's the first player comparison video that I actually did on my channel. I always stayed away from those because they're really trouble. Like, people are always on one side of the fence. The majority of people are on one side of the fence. So, if you say something that they don't like, you're automatically a hater, or then you have the people that just really love everything you said, or that was the first time I just said, screw it, I'm just gonna compare these two players and say what I think. And it's also one of the few times on this channel that I think I took a very, very definitive stance on something, because normally I'm arguing both sides, because it's kind of like it's like trying to, how do I say, it's like you're always in limbo, right? You're trying to keep people happy. You're trying to say, you know, yeah, I can see it from this perspective and I can see it from this perspective. But in that video, I was like, okay, there's a point here and I feel very strongly about that point. So I'm going to argue everything I think about that. And there's going to be people who hate it and they're going to be mad at me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. There's going to be people who say, I can kind of see what you're saying, but I disagree. And then there's going to be people on the, you know, very far side that are just going to say you're a hater and man, I used to like you and all this stuff. I'm like, get the f out of here with that, man. Like, if you can't handle somebody's opinion, then just go, fam. But I consider that my first strong opinion video, and strong opinions, they're going to alienate some people and they're going to bring some people even closer to you. So whatever side you lie on, like not even just with me, but with other YouTubers, if there's a strong opinion you disagree with, just learn how to debate and just move on with it. There's no reason for all the extra emotions. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm down to my last question, and Zara Man Noodles, I hope I said that right. He asked, what's the hardest thing about YouTube people don't realize? And I think that's an amazing question to go ahead and end this Q&A with. I sat back and thought about it for a while, because I think by this point, there's difficult things about YouTube that people do realize. Like, I think from the comments I get, people do realize by now that editing takes a hell of a lot of time. Even the people that don't do it realize editing takes a lot of time. I think what people probably don't realize is that if you really do YouTube, I'm not talking about just like, you know, every other month or, you know, every month or so. If you really do YouTube and you're consistent at it, YouTube is like having a job. The only difference is, well, hopefully if you really do this, is that you enjoy it. So when you're doing the work, it doesn't really feel like work, but it's still the whole time commitment thing that goes with it. It is just like having a job. Because when you're doing a video, if you're not just gonna sit at your computer and just say whatever comes to mind, you have to do a lot of planning for that. And if you're gonna edit a certain way, you have to plan for that. Once you get a script exactly how you want it, there's audio recording that goes with that, and sometimes that can take a while. Once you audio record, you gotta lay down the tracks and start to edit, and editing, even the most basic editing, just takes for fucking ever sometimes. So like I'll give you guys an example. The last video I made, which was the Chris Paul video, believe it or not, that was one that I just woke up that day and said, you know, I want to make this video. I never do that. As a rule of thumb, I never just roll out of bed and say I want to make a video, because normally that pushes the schedule back days. But it had been a while since I posted, so I'm like, you know what, it's spring break. Today I'm just going to lock down and do this video. And I think that video took me from like 12 o'clock midday to probably about around 8 o'clock at night to finish, and I just worked on it straight. Like, that was with minimal breaks. So now you might see why some of your favorite YouTubers don't post as frequently as you would want them, because some of your favorite YouTubers are in school, or they might even have a job that maybe YouTube isn't supporting them well, and they have another job outside of YouTube. Just like a regular job, you really have to manage it with a social life if you want one of those. Personally, I want a social life, so I have to juggle that. You might have to juggle that with school and a bunch of other things that life throws at you. So I think that's the part that people don't realize, because sometimes you get in the comments and people are just like, yeah, put a video up, do this, do that, and it's like, if you really want to do it correctly and consistently, it's like another part of your life that you have to take care of. And if you just start forgetting about it, before you know it, it's been days since you posted. And yeah, you just have to keep track with it. And I think over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now that I've been doing YouTube, I've been doing a pretty good job with that. So I can't wait for graduation to start doing this. At least till the end of this year, I'll definitely be doing it full time. And of course, that's a question that I got 1,000 times throughout reading the questions for the Q&A. People were asking, what are you going to do after graduation? And didn't necessarily want to answer it again, because I believe I did that a year ago, but things have changed a little bit. So yeah, after graduation, at very least until the end of this year, I want to give my best shot at YouTube full time, because the one thing I've never had in this year and a half is full-time effort to give to YouTube. Even during Christmas breaks and summertime, which are my two longest breaks, even during those times where it seems like I could be on YouTube full time, I have to think about, okay, I got school in X amount of weeks, so you know, I kind of had to prioritize things that I wanted to do. So being on full time, I'm just gonna have all the time in the world to sit down and create, which is all I've really wanted for a pretty long time now. So I definitely am gonna give that a shot. Oh, and yeah, I'm also starting a podcast, so there's gonna be more information on that. That's all I want to say about that right now, because I've got big plans there. Alright, well, that's the end of this Q&A. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for 200k, and I'm really excited to see what I can do in a few months. Hopefully we can do even more than 100k in the next year. Very big goal, but I think with the time that I have, that's definitely achievable. So thank you for all the support. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video pretty soon.